Greetings, everyone. It's great to be learning and journeying with you. The topic for today is Voyaging on the Mystical Ark of Noah. I'd like you to take a few moments to contemplate the image before you of Noah at the end of his journey and the return of the dove and the appearance of the great rainbow, signifying our birthright of attunement with God, on the tumultuous waters and that purify us. Once you've taken it in, I invite you to close your eyes and let go of the cares of the day and join us all in meditation. Take a few deep breaths that can be neutral, not holding the inhalation nor the exhalation. Get comfortable in your chair or however you're situated. Suggest you have your spine upright. You're seated in that fashion. Your hands in your laps, palms down. Right angle at your knees. Feet flat on the floor, about 8 inches apart. Just enjoy the beautiful rhythm of the breath, part of the rhythm of the cosmos. For now, let go of the events of the day, the tumultuous happenings within our life, possibly, or those in the world around us. Rise up above these things as if a great floodwater was below you. Feel the rain coming down, purifying you, regenerating you, ennobling you. Rise up above the waters and float above them in a great ark. This ark is a great pyramidal structure. It's who you truly are and how you have always been and will be. Take some time to dwell in peace within your body and in the pyramid of the ark. Sense in the ark about you a great representation of the entirety of creation, the microcosm of the macrocosm, who you truly are. All the creatures who have joined you as Noah are aspects within your being and reflected in the microcosm to the macrocosm. Sense the stupendous harmony and order within the pyramid. Now that we've become one-pointed in our concentration, moving from duality to unity, let us rise up the fourfold levels of this step pyramid. Gradually, as you rise or ascend, we'll go through the 12 degrees or stages of a return to the one. The first is the ascent from pride, also known as the awakening. We pass through the stages of letting go of fear or sorrow of grief and the increasing embracement of love. Keep rising up faster and faster For this pyramid is huge and takes in the cosmos. After this great awakening, we come to the ascent of concupiscence. It's a great purgation. Here we learn greater to enter into patience, the degree of mercy, the degree of compunction. Keep rising again and again, higher and higher. Feel the exaltation of the ascent. Rising now in the ascent from ignorance, known as the illumination, which culminates in a further purgation, the obscure night. Here we rise through cognition, greater capacity to move from perception to conception, to conceive the whole. Meditation, as we're doing now, and contemplation. Keep rising, use great inner strength. Soon we'll have time to be passive and attune with the cosmic even more. Now ascend from the good to the better. That is from the stage of perfection or union, mystical union. Here we pass through the stage or degree of temperance, prudence, and then the final 12th degree of fortitude. At the very apex of the pyramid, you'll find the throne of the divine. Be seated in it now and take in the entirety of the cosmos. And dwell in peace profound. In this throne, you are the sovereign. You are one with the one. Your divine nature declares itself beyond the outer nature, which it is unified with. Shift any aspect of your outer mind now to the divine mind. Be it, become one with it, assume it. This is our birthright that was promised to us from the beginning of time to the end of time. It is signified by the dove beside us and the great rainbow arching over our head. Now let us apply the law of gratitude and the law of service and radiate love and well-being from the center of the cosmos, at the center of our heart, the heart of the divine. Radiate love and well-being now. Let it flow. Once it gets started, it will continue on its own and continue to dwell in profound peace when you're ready. Shortly we'll begin our return, but with the assurance and confidence that this love will radiate at all times as service to all beings throughout the cosmos in need. As we begin our descent, we sense the great motion of this ark, journeying eastward to the paradise that's always within us and where we sat enthroned, which is truly where we always are in our unified understanding. Gradually come down the great pyramid encompassing the cosmos. Come back enriched and rejuvenated, ready for the work and worship of the day. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and we'll continue our work in the presentation. Thank you. So be it in truth, so mote it be. The story of Noah's Ark is one that's of profound import to many, particularly from the days of childhood. There's something deeper intuitively sensed by the child. Here we have depicted a play toy of Noah's family, his partner, the ark, and the pairs of animals one may have played with and think of fondly from one's younger days. This, like many other things, make a profound impression upon us. There's many stories, sacred texts that do that, wherever tradition you come from. Maybe Ezekiel's visions of the wheels that made a profound impression upon us. Or we've seen recently in the Rose Quad Journal, the latest issue, volume 14, about the Wizard of Oz, and the beautiful story that of mystical import it relates to us. Over time, these seeds that are planted, for those who are seekers, they'll come to great fruition. The flower will burst forth from the earth. Here we have a painting by Edward Hicks, who was a profound and renowned Quaker, who was profoundly influenced by the Rose Quad tradition of meditation and the seeking of the inner light. He depicts here a symbolic picture of Noah's Ark and the animals coming on board. Soon, with the reign of 40 days and 40 nights, which of course is a symbolic number in the Bible. Here we're dealing prominently with the mystical interpretation of scriptures. The Rosicrucian order is not a religion. It is a mystical order, and mysticism in the sense of the direct experience of reality, the full maturation of the human being, the awareness of all the laws and principles of the cosmos. So we can be one with the divine. But the 40 symbolizes the fourfold structure. 4 is an important number for different elements of physicality, such as the 4 directions, or the traditional 4 elements. But it's multiplied by the 10, the decad, so it's all-encompassing, all-informing, the number 40. We notice 40 is also an important number in the life of Moses and the master Yeshua in their spiritual operations. The ark goes on a great journey, somewhat like our own life. In a way, you can think of this story as an inner allegory of our own mystical development. The tumultuous waters that we rise above. In a way, it's a great psychodrama taking place within ourselves that we sensed as a child and can now have the full maturation of in our adult years. You know, it's often thought that by the time we're 18, we've grown up. And in certain ways, physically that happens, but that we also have throughout our lives a tremendous amount of growing up to be done. And part of coming to the deeper understanding of these stories is part of that. You know, emphasizing the mystical interpretation of Noah's Ark. I showed you originally the slide that's on the left of a stained glass window of Noah towards the end of the great voyage of the Noah's Ark that's related in Genesis 6 to 9. The dove that was sent out returns. It has the sign of land, and there's a great rainbow that shows the covenant of the human being with God, or since our birthright to attune with and be one with the divine. That was associated by the early Christian mystic theologians, matching up things from the Genesis in earlier books of the Bible with later books of the Bible, the Gospel, with the baptism by John the Baptist of the Master Yeshua. In both cases, the dove descends and ennobles and enriches and makes the one into the fully spiritualized, what we say in the Rosicrucian tradition, the rose croix state. This is an important part of the lesson of Noah's Ark. It's also mentioned that sometimes people will wonder, well, where is meditation mentioned in the Bible or sacred text? Actually, they're mentioned many times, but one has to look and persevere. For example, in the Bible, there's the word hitzbogatat. Hitzbogatat means self-isolation, but also means meditation. And it's one of the many references to the act of meditation in the Bible that's been eruditely and profoundly elucidated for us by the profound Rabbi Ari Kaplan. Additionally, many of the stories, when mystically understood, actually describe the technique of meditation. Ezekiel's vision of the wheels does that, and Noah's Ark does that. In fact, we applied Noah's Ark story in our meditation when we began this session that you experienced Noah's Ark. Another profound relationship or interpretation of Noah's Ark was as a body. You know, it was spoken of being 30 cubits in height and 50 cubits in breadth and 300 cubits in length. Many of the early mystic theologians of the church and early rabbis and later would describe this as being the proportions of the human body as a microcosm of the macrocosm. It was also said that this is the tomb or the sepulcher of the Master Yeshua. Again, just like the story of Noah's Ark being matched up with the baptism of Yeshua is matched up also with the entombment for his resurrection, that the ark was a great microcosm. It is in fact our being within us, the divine spirit expressing itself within us. Another relationship with Noah's Ark was it said to be the body of the church, or those who are spiritually minded, that have risen above the water and are channeling themselves eastward towards paradise within it. The stories of all the animals coming on board is viewed as a point of unification. Just as in meditation, we must let go of the cares of the day, rise above the tumultuous events of the day, both within our personal life, but in the larger sphere of our environment, our nation, and the world. Not as an escape, but as a temporary retreat to come back stronger and fused, like the spiritual master Noah and Yeshua. The animals coming on board are different aspects and features of ourselves. The dove going out was the working with the air element with our self from the window, the door with the physical elements. Each part of the ark had a corresponding esoteric aspect to it. It's beautiful to keep in mind that the early traditions of Judaic and Christian meditation think of meditation as an act of unification, hence the one-pointedness, the coming together of Noah and his family and all the animals as a representation of the world. In fact, Philo of Alexandria and the traditional Rosicrucian, but also traditional Rosicrucian, Cornelius Agrippa, they talk about the ark as being a simulacrum or a model of the world. which is what we truly are. Also, you can see in the Bible a great voyage from duality to unity. One truth in its way is being represented. And there's this story from the so-called fall from unity, the great voyage of Noah's Ark to return back to that unity. There was a development of character. One had to be noble and rich to be able to be on the ark and ready for it. The waters of the rain were purifying and cleansing, just like we went up through those various stages that were purification when it rose up in the pyramid of the ark. The idea of the ark as a pyramid can seem a little surprising. If you've ever been to Florence, and I know some of you recently were in the wake of the last World Convention of the Rosicrucian Order, you may have seen Lorenzo Ghiberti's, the renowned Florentine goldsmith and sculptor's doors that he made between, in particular, 1425 and 1452, Eastern portal of the baptistry, very befittingly with Noah's Ark story. Here we see depicted the pyramid of the ark and the story of Noah here. In Genesis 6:16, you may wonder, why is it being interpreted as a pyramid? That's one. There's various shapes that have been given to the Noah's Ark. The one is I showed you in regard to the representation of the great rectangular form associated with the mass, but the Christ body, or the cosmic conscious body and our microcosmic body, but it also takes the form of a pyramid. There's another way it expresses itself. There's a description there in Genesis 6:16, as I mentioned. A window shalt thou make to the ark, and in it a cubit shall thou finish it above, and the door of the ark shall thou set in the side thereof, with lower, second, and third stories shalt thou make it. And one of the interpretations of that was a four-step pyramid. It's quite beautiful and wonderful idea to think of the ark in that fashion. Now, one of the greatest mystical exponents of this form of interpretation of Noah's Ark and its relevance to us as spiritual seekers, moving from duality to unity, was Hugh of St. Victor. He was one of the great teachers of the 12th century. The 12th century is often known during the Middle Ages, sort of the midpoint in the Middle Ages, as there was a great renaissance in learning and understanding and teaching, and Hugh of St. Victor was at the center of it, along with such luminaries as Bernard of Clairvaux, or Anselm, who was the Archbishop of Canterbury, or the illumined master Hildegard of Bingen. It was also the time of the great logician, reasoner Abelard. This depiction here is quite remarkable in a way because it has very many mystical and inspiring elements to it that relate to all levels of existence. I'll describe them some before we conclude our presentation. In a way, it's a cosmological diagram. It shows here the various symbolisms of the four that I'll go into detail more earlier. Somewhat like Berthoud's diagram that I showed you when we talked about Durham Cathedral and a mystical tour of that great temple. Signs of the zodiac and so forth are depicted here. There's also a mappa mundi in Latin, or a world map in English here. And here we find the Ark of Noah going from the west to the orient, to the east. Beside here, we'll have depicted 9 choirs of angels associated with the great mystic Pseudo-Dionysus, in a very profound mystical text that Hugh was well versed in, had profound import, along with the teachings of the Neoplatonists throughout the ancient and medieval period. Here we have Christ in majesty. In a way, it's the Christ consciousness and our cosmic consciousness. In a way, we're looking at who we truly are here. I'll describe in a little more detail this structure, but let me put it in a little more context. Hugh of St. Victor was an Augustinian canon. And he taught at the great teaching center of St. Victor in Paris. during, as I was mentioning, the first half of the 12th century. Here we have depicted by one of the professors that have made a profound study of Hugh St. Victor's text on the moral arc and the text on the mystical arc. Here is depicted Hugh St. Victor teaching to his students about the great diagram of the mystical Ark of Noah, this great cosmological diagram. By way of description, the things that Hugh would mention, I'll describe it some here to you now. As I mentioned earlier, the figure engracing or holding this great world map and cosmological diagram is Christ in majesty at one with the Godhead. 4, as I mentioned, is the 9 choirs of angels, the different phases of advancements in our spiritual development to the cosmic state. 3, of course, are the seraphim. 4, choir of angels I've mentioned. 5 around here is the zodiac. 6 are the months. Again, the symbolism of 12 and the 12 degrees when we made our ascent in the pyramid. 7 are the winds. 8 is the quaternary or the harmony, like the different 4s that are used in the ancient and medieval music, which I'll elaborate a little more in a while. The quaternary harmony. 9, as I mentioned, that's the great map of Monday, or the great map of the world. 10 is the arc, that journeying arc that is who we are, moving from duality to unity. And 11, we have the symbolism of the evangelists, associated with the profound symbolism of 4. 10 is the arc again, and we have these various aspects. So you see here in a comprehensive diagram, 2, the throne, where the Christ in majesty, where we are enthroned, just as we did in our meditation. To elucidate this further for you, and you can see in a way what Hugh is doing here with his students, he's creating a mnemonic device, somewhat like the vault of CRC in our own tradition. In a way, the vault of CRC is all the teachings of your monographs, the entirety of Rosicrucian laws and principles that you can go back to and use that vault, just like Hugh's students would use this diagram to remember things about where Asia Minor was, or where Asia is, or where the different elements of 4 of the body are. They would memorize this diagram, and they would use that as an ancient mnemonic device to aid their memory. The human is capable of great feats of memory, and one of the ways it was done from ancient times to the present is you'd work with a visual image, and you'd place various elements of knowledge in that part of the diagram, just like we can do with the vault of CRC, where we are reawakened to that unity as brother CRC, who we truly are. Now, to describe this further, the pyramidal structure of this diagram of the Ark of Noah is actually 3-dimensional. In a certain sense, it's even higher dimensional. But you can see here, there's the four levels associated with that we pass through, those 4 stages of ascent that Hugh taught his students of. And he would initiate them through these 4 stages or 4 degrees, through meditation, contemplation, and study of the laws and principles of life, of the nature similar we learned in our Rosicrucian tradition with our degrees. Also, here's the map of Monday. You know how we ascended up the ark, the great pyramid of the ark. We came to the throne of the divine, which is often situated as the Lamb of, where the Lamb of God is at the very center. That's blowing up this detail here. But you can see where Africa is placed, Europe is placed. It's created in a great mandala. It's a profound symbolism, the meeting of the finite and the infinite, that often the Master Yeshua, Christ, is sitting enthroned, that you may recall from the great Western portals at Chartres Cathedral, for example. You can see the great bodies of waters in the ocean depicted there. This would be for the students to learn geography, but also sacred geography. Things would be spiritualized. Also here, remember that 4-fold structure in that diagram? Here we have the wet, the hot, the cold, and the dry. And this will also be associated, the with the top being east, childhood, the stage of life, air and spring. To the right is the south, the adolescence of life and our spiritual development, fire and summer. The bottom with the west that the ark is moving away from to the middle, our middle ages, midlife, the earth and the autumn, and the left, the north, the older age, water and winter. Another part of the diagram as well is situated the systems of periodization, or the periods that we pass through in both a profane and sacred way. You see here what's referred to as the Old or New Testament, the teachings that match up and parallel each other. There's also the three periods associated, A, B, and C, with natural law, the written law, and the period of grace. These are, again, spiritual terms that we would see in our own understanding of understanding natural and spiritual laws in our Rosicrucian tradition, but moving into living embodiment and expression of those which we associate with the grace. There's also the three types of people, or the plank system, of the green of nature, the yellow of the law, and the period of grace, similar to what I just outlined. And there's also the 6 ages that are described in the great movement from unity, duality that sacred texts take us through. Here from Adam up to the flood up to Abraham, Abraham up to David, David up to the captivity, and the captivity up to the coming of Christ, or the Christ consciousness, cosmic consciousness. And the coming of Christ till the end of time, or the end of illusion of time in the unification, the perpetual Sabbath, the beginning, reigning perpetually with Christ as we did in our meditation. We entered into the throne and the Christ consciousness there. See, all these things are going on with us, are always with us. They're whether we're passing through our degrees, and our Rosicrucian teachings are doing for us and helping us as we apply ourselves to the mystical laws and principles. Applying these things in service in our own life. Here's another diagram associated with that center mandora of the great diagram of the mystical Ark of Noah. Is the central pillar, and one is where that cubit is, where you say the throne is. There's also beside it in 2 the tree of life, but also the book of life that we learn to read and understand. Life is no longer chaotic or cryptic. We have the laws and principles from the order as the cryptogram to unlock, to see and understand, and be ennobled and enriched. The other numbers refer to selected components like 4 or paradise, the place of paradise, 5 Adam, the micro-macrocosm, 6 Egypt, 7 the great sacred history of a few Hebrews fleeing to Egypt, which is also symbolic to us in gaining teachings and learning, the 42 stopping places, the great journey of the children of Israel in the wilderness. Again, it's a story associated with our own spiritual development through those 5 traditional mystical phases of development that we went through when we rose up in the Ark of the Pyramid. The exile, the Babylon, the Last Judgment, the hell, and the Manasculan. Again, these are all to do with becoming into the stage of unity. These are things that Hugh's students would see, they would internalize and become. Just like with our own Rosicrucian teachings, we become one with the vault of CRC. We use it to learn, memorize laws, and can apply them at every opportune moment as we've been charged to do. Here you'll see depicted those stages that we pass through that are associated with the 12 degrees that Hugh initiated his students in. They're associated with the ascent from pride or the awakening, which is the fear, grief, sorrow, and love that you can see on the diagram, but also the ascent from concupiscence or purgation, through patience, mercy, and compunction, the ascent from ignorance or illumination, which can culminate in a great purgation referred to as the obscure night, or some know as the dark night of the soul, but cognition, meditation, and contemplation, and the ascent from the good to the better, which is the stage of perfection or mystical union. You'll see in the diagram, it outlines these in a symbolic way as part of the rising up of this great pyramidal arc that is truly us. He's done it in a particular pattern of ascent and descent through these 12 degrees. Fourfold ascent, which is tripartite, having the three subsections in it to make the 4 times 3 or the 12. And 12, of course, is a beautiful symbolic number to do with the structure of our development and our universe. So in culmination, we come here again to the diagram with a greater understanding of its structure and a greater appreciation in a way that we're looking at who we truly are. All that we come to know and can be known is, like Plato related, is within us. The answers are within. We use the world to draw out those lessons and understanding. Part of the value of science and the spiritualization of the arts, which Hugh did. One of the great statements written on here, you can see that the Christ figure of the Logos is pointing out things here with a staff with the chrism or the cross on it, and the banner here. One of the statements is actually from Matthew 25:34. In Christ's right hand is held a throne, written on it, "Come, blessed ones of my Father, receive the kingdom of heaven, which has been ready for you since the beginning of time." This is one of the many examples in the West. Some of them are in our order and some through other sacred traditions, and such as Hugh's been influenced by the Rose Croix tradition, is of a psychocosmogram, a map of the universe, a map of ourselves as a microcosm. It's our initiatory guide through the 12 degrees. It's our essential work, our oneness with the stages of development of the 9 choirs of angels within us that we purify ourselves to be aware of. All knowledge is unified and connected in a profoundly meaningful way. So speak in conclusion then on the mystical meaning and voyaging on the mystical Ark of Noah that we've been doing in this presentation. You've been doing all your life and continue to do. And in our meditation, rising up the Great Pyramid, traveling eastward to paradise, to the throne, the divine. I can say that the story of Noah's Ark describes the technique of meditation and the unification. It is a story of our great inward journey in self-mastery and service, in the realization of mystical union. Thank you so much for joining us today.